Let's go.
We're here in Mexico. We are in the Dominican Republic. So I'm gonna tell you a couple different tips that have helped me over the years.
Wow! Unbelievable! Jacob Wheeler makes history!
Yeah, that'll catch one, for sure. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today, I'm going to dive into my top baits for the month of September. We're getting ready right now, just finishing touches. You can see everything's a mess. You can't really see the whole boat, but I got stuff everywhere. Because I'm finishing up some tackle prep, some preparation for the final event of the season up on St. Clair, and a lot's at stake, so I got to really focus and get on top of that. But with that being said, I wanted to hop on here and at least give you guys a pretty good understanding of what sort of my picks are. Not saying they're the correct picks, but this is sort of just some picks that I feel like the month of September. If you watched the previous video, my top picks in the month of August, I sort of went through a couple different things and talked about some of the things. That's the early transition period. August is really the start of the transition. September is the major transition. You have these days are getting shorter. You got cooler days. We just had a hurricane. Prayers out to all the people that were affected down in Louisiana and all over the country, whether it's through flooding, whatever it might have affected you. Heart goes out to those people. At the end of the day, fishing is starting to get a little bit better. It's going to be, those cooler nights start to get those fish to realize, hey, listen, some of the places up north, it gets really good because the fact is, whether you're in Canada, whether you're in upstate New York, or you're in Minnesota, some of these places are really going to get these cooler nights and really push those fish in that major fall feed. So for some of you in the more northern regions of the States, or even into Canada, this is going to be the time where when that starts to happen, the fish are really going to start to bite. And that's why I'm really looking forward to going to St. Clair, because I feel like we're going to have a little bit of cool weather. Now, going into more, the central U.S., even the south, the southeast, what's really happening now is, water temperatures around here on Chickamauga and around the places that I'm fishing are really around that 80-degree mark, in mid-80s. I think this is going to start to, trend downward. You're going to have grass is going to be a major player. You have a lot of schooling fish happening, whether you're on a spotted bass fishery, a largemouth fishery, even a smallmouth fishery, really anywhere down south. For the most part, a lot of the shad have, the shad spawn has happened, and they're starting to school on small bait. So the number one bait, the first bait that I'm going to pick for my lineup and my best baits in September is a wrapless skitter pop. This guy right here, there's a couple different sizes. I believe, I'm gonna hold up, let me make sure exactly what number this is before I tell you. There's two different sizes that I throw. This guy, there's one a little bit smaller. I'll tell you guys, I'll actually drop a little comment where I'll tell you by the end of the video. I'll make sure to do that for you. The reason why I like a little small, like popping style bait, is when those fish are coming up schooling. This has enough weight where I can throw it on like a 6'10". I throw it on my 6'10" medium action rod, throw it on braid where I can make longer cast, but I could just really put two pretty decent sized hooks on there. And the chrome really makes it look like there's multiple shad there. So you really don't get a really good look at that chrome style topwater, along with a feather. I always add a feather treble. That's something that I like, especially when they're keying in on that small bait. So feather treble, upsize your hooks. That way, if they're just slapping at the bait, you're going to get those fish in. But a popping style bait like the skitter pop right here is definitely one that I'm going to have on my deck. Second is sort of a little bit different. And before I go into the second one, I want to make sure to give you guys sort of understanding of where the areas of the lake that's really going to play on the skitter pop side. I feel like it's more so your main lake points, your main lake flats, neck down, current areas where the current, wind current can actually get going. Those are going to be your main zones where you're going to want to throw or look for schoolers in those areas. So humps, major flats, major points. Sort of a general idea of where to find those schoolers this time of year. And also sometimes in the middle of the creeks. That can be a major deal too. Halfway back in the creeks, the bait gets back there. You can look for those as well. Now, second on my list is a Ned Rig. The reason why I think a Ned Rig is good this time of year, again, is the bait. The forage is smaller, the fish are really getting a little bit goofier about, you know, keying in on that small bait. So I will grab, what's a VMC, it's a 16th ounce Ned head. I throw an 1/8 probably the most, but if I'm fishing shallower, I'm gonna probably pick that 16th up where I can cast, you know, 5 foot and shallower, I'll throw that 16 because that slow fall sometimes really can get those fish to bite. As far as Ned bait colors, I am going to pick, really it just depends on the watercolor. Really just depends on what's going on. Dropping, rattling Neds out of the pack. But, you know, for me, you got this guy right here, Green Pumpkin Goby, that's a great color. You can go into, you know, your pinks, like this Morning Dawn. Actually, a low key is probably one of my favorites, especially really any time of year, but especially sometimes they just bite that sucker. I can't explain. But Smelt would probably be my #1 if they're really keen on bait, and if they're around like little rocky little areas, Smelt's probably my #1. I have Blue Penny in here. This is sort of what the box that I keep in my boat at all times for, you know, for Ned Rig style baits, and that's what I typically will throw one of those 4 colors. But it all really depends on watercolor and water clarity, and that's what you got to figure out and really adjust accordingly. Now, going to the #3, the top, and these aren't even in like 1, 2, 3. I wouldn't say like this one's more important. It's all dependent on the fishery that you are ultimately fishing. That is really the biggest key right now, is understanding that things are changing and every fishery is completely different. They might be going through the same changes and the same transitions, but what really is happening is cover that's available for these fish. These fish are moving up there shallower. They're up there shallower on those flats. They're up there shallower on that wood or on those docks. And so you have to really start to, you know, adjust your bait selection according to what type of cover you're fishing. If you're on a lake that has a lot of grass and the fish are around grass, you know, that Ned Rig with an open hook might not be the deal for you. Now, if it's only, you know, grass, it's only a couple feet up off the bottom or a foot off the bottom, you can pop that through there with a 16 ounce. It could be a really good technique to generate some bites. Last month we talked about the Jabberjaw and the Jabberjaw Deep, and that cranking the backs of the creeks and throwing that wide wobbling crankbait. I'm going to go on the opposite side of the spectrum here. This is a Rapala OG Slim, a crankbait that I've caught a lot of fish on. Color really just depends on where you're fishing, what you're trying to imitate. One thing they definitely key in this time of year is a bluegill. This looks great like a bluegill. This is actually a new color in the OG Slim. So I think it's a copper green shad. So it looks like a bluegill a lot, and that's sort of the thing that I'll start to transition between. I'll still have that Jabberjaw on the front deck, but I like to have the subtle side of it, and this bait is a really subtle, tight wiggling crankbait. Typically you think of tight wiggling crankbaits or tight wobbling crankbaits as cold water baits, but there's times throughout the day and the year that the fish will really key in on this bait over a wider wobbling, more aggressive bait. If the fish are more active, they'll bite that and you can generate some more bites. If the fish are really fickle, this little tighter wobbling bait, that OG Slim, will be a bait that definitely will generate some bites when you can't get them to bite that more aggressive. So this is sort of the finesse cranking side of my selection. I still will definitely have a square bill tied on, and have that Jabberjaw, but this is definitely one that I want to have tied on as well, because if you're on a crankbite, you want to sort of have both ends of the spectrum, you know, finesse and then more aggressive. Now, last but not least for me, it really comes down to confidence. I mean, I could go into so many different baits. I mean, another one I would obviously have would be a frog. I mean, there's so many, a Swimbait. This is definitely one that catches a lot of fish right here, and it's a box full of Guggenbait Bandito bugs. Bandito bug for me is my all-around, day in and day out. If I need a bite, I can generate a bite on a Bandito bug, flipping it, dragging it. However I rig it, it seems to catch a fish. So Blue Baby is my favorite color day in and day out, just because it imitates a bluegill, it imitates a crawfish. It's got a little bit of that blue in it, but it's more of a green pumpkin base, which green pumpkin catches fish really for most part, almost in all watercolors, and you don't have a ton of muddy water this time of year right now. You do have a little bit from the rain, so if you're seeing a lot of that really stained, muddy water, you might have to transition to more of your darker colors, your black and blues. So that's definitely one, but I'm gonna flip this bait, use a quarter. I'll have 2 rods rigged up normally, or I'll swap back between the weight size. I'll throw a quarter, I'll throw a half. I wanna see if they're really dialed in on that faster fall and I can generate the bite, or if I have to make them like react, or I want that slower fall to give them time to actually get it. Now, hold up, I have one more bait that I have to show you. Let me get in here 1 second, guys. Sorry, I forgot to give it to y'all. That I'm like, man, this is actually one you really need to start thinking about. Hold up. Okay, so swim baits. Small swim baits to be more specific. Again, imitating the shad, imitating the bait fish that the fish are keying in on. If you're seeing your fish that you're catching, or the fish that are biting, blowing up on something, or targeting larger bait fish, you're gonna wanna upsize, sometimes do a little bit larger profile. But for me, this little bait right here is about as perfect. It's a 3-inch Storm Largo shad. Comes in a package like this guy right here. It's just, for me, the perfect profile again for a thread fin shad in general. And it's small enough it can imitate that really small bait, and they'll bite it pretty well. I'm gonna rig this up right here. I have a whole box of these jig heads. Let me see here. This is the hybrid swim bait jig head from VMC, and it has a screw lock on it. And so it's more of an O'Shaughnessy bend to it. It has like that O'Shaughnessy bend to it that allows it to really, for me, this is my favorite hook for a swim bait, especially finesse swim baiting. If you have a little bit bulkier, bigger profile swim bait, you're gonna have to go with a bigger jig head or a bigger hook in your jig head. Super simple to rig. You put him on there. Let me get him on there real quick here. I'll rig him up for you. I actually believe I have a video on this on the channel. So if you guys are looking for a rigging video, I have one that actually talks about this particular swim bait and how to rig it. But basically, really quickly, you just rotate the swim bait around the jig head because it is a screw lock, and there you have it, just like that. That little dude right there is a good one. That's a 3/16 right there, so it's 3/16 for shallower water. Probably throw a quarter a little bit for the deeper water, but you can throw actually a quarter fairly deep. I mean, you can get a quarter down there, 10, 12, 14 feet deep. I will throw that on a spinning rod a lot of times. So my setup for that is a 7-foot medium action spinning rod, casting it out there, reeling that bait around. And then just depending on what depth I'm really keying in on, that's it. So those are my picks, but before we jump off here, I'm going to make a call. Hold on 1 second. Yo, buddy. Hey, hold up. I got you on this video, bro. All right. I got DC Dustin Connell on the video. I got to ask him. Hey, he's still coughing.
I'm coughing up a lung still.
Gosh, son, are you okay?
I'm making it. I'm
gonna be looking forward to seeing this dude up on St. Clair for sure. We actually got a chance to spend some time together previously here before, but DC just got over COVID. He actually go and check his story out on his YouTube channel. He just posted a video talking about it. But before all that, forget all that stuff. We're going fishing. We're going bass fishing. This is the deal, okay? I want to ask you, for all the viewers out here, I'm going through some of my top picks for the month of September. I want to hear one bait. You got one bait in the month of September in the central Midwest.
You already
South.
know. Well, there's 2 baits that I really like.
Okay.
You already know one of them. I'm going to let you just guess.
I already know, but I ain't going to say it. I'm going to let you throw it out there.
I'm going to pick one for me. September is a jerkbait. These fish are not active in the south, at least. They're not really active.
Jerkbait.
You kind of get them to try to trigger them to bite. They tend to suspend a lot more in September anyway. They do. So a jerkbait's perfect. And I'm going to fly one more in there, Topwater for sure. Topwater.
Okay. So there you have it. You got even a little extra on top of this. DC, we're going to close this sucker out. I will, hey, you go reel me one in, okay? I'm going to see you in a couple days.
I'm going to go reel one in. Me and Mark Daniels about to go catch them because they dang sure ain't going to catch yourself. We'll catch y'all at St. Clair.
All right. So that is it. We did it. Got through it all. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit from this video. I tried to go through some of the scenarios of what I ultimately am fishing a lot of this stuff in. You even got a little extra from DC himself. We appreciate you following along. And hey, we're going to go try to catch you guys a couple at St. Clair.